for 5 hours about PTSD and trauma. No problem, no nerves. I'm good. I don't even prepare. My husband's like, you don't even know what you're going to say? Nope, just go for it. I've just been doing it that long. Talking about something more personal, talking about the story of my life and my trauma and my grief and my loss and the story of our family and my brother is something very new to me. So today I was thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to say? I'm super nervous, right? This is taboo. So I come from the background that I was trained in is psychodynamic, which is the Freud and the Jung and all the people that say, you know, your mother's a problem and all that. And part of what we're taught in school is to be neutral, it's all about the patient, right? To have this frame. And so sharing your story as a clinical psychologist is looked down upon. I mean, that's shifting in the field of mental health, but there was a lot of nerves. There's nerves talking about this today and even writing this book. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here to do that and I thank Danny for that. And I really just appreciate all of you here because I wish I knew about Thrive Solutions when my brother was still living in Las Vegas. This program is amazing. I send my patients to this program. I refer a lot of people. And in some ways I felt calmed by the fact that I knew I was actually preaching to the choir, right? Because I thought about it, like, what am I going to say? Of course, I'll read a little from here. I'll talk a little bit about me. I'll make it quick. But I felt calmed by the idea of, okay, I'm talking to people who get it. Wherever you're at, or whether you're a patient here or you're the loved one, you get it on some level. So I was like, okay, right? Because the mission, the reason I wrote this book and the reason that I'm kind of breaking these rules of being a therapist in some ways is because I think that the stigma is really around mental health in general, but especially addiction and substance use is what is keeping so many people in shame and in secrecy. And I know that truly when I think about it, it was the stigma that killed my brother. It wasn't that he didn't have a good family. It wasn't that he didn't have support. It wasn't that we didn't have money to send him to all sorts of places, right? We had more than most people actually have. We had so much access, a lot of privilege in that way. And I know that's not everyone's story, but we had that. And so I think about it, he had all of these resources, including a clinical psychologist sister who specializes in trauma, and it still happened to him, and it still happened to us. And there was a lot of shame around that for me for a while, and I think there still is sometimes. It's been a few years. It's been about 2.5 years since I lost my brother to an accidental fentanyl overdose. The tox report showed that it was pure fentanyl that he had ingested that night. And when I spoke to a friend that he was with that night, just, you know, asking him about the situation, he said there was absolutely no way he knew that that was what he was buying. I believe that he thought he was buying heroin. You just don't know, right? And he actually was currently in a rehab facility. They went to an outing, and one thing led to another. I don't really know the details, but I think, you know, he was more vulnerable because he had been, you know, clean, which I hate that word because the opposite of clean is dirty, and it's like, right in the language is so shaming and stigmatizing. I hate that. So I don't really know, because it's like sober, you think of alcohol, clean, you think of drug. The language around it all, it's so shaming. And I want to talk about that in a minute. But he had been clean for a few months. And so he was the most vulnerable. So, you know, that's a piece of his story. And when I tell that, I feel like the stigma, you know, I tell people, oh, you know, he died from fentanyl overdose. And I make a point to say it was accidental. You heard me say that just now, right? Right. I think I say that mostly because I want to insinuate that it wasn't a suicide. But for a while, I thought about that word because I was actively using it when I would talk to friends and family and people about what happened to my brother. And I think that word accidental, like, reduces my own shame that I had this brother who was a heroin addict. Oh my gosh, heroin, right? So I grew up in the era, well, I guess the tail end of the just say no, right? That was still going around when I was in school. And so this culture that we have grown up in that has taught us, first of all, that's the most bullshit slogan I've ever heard. Because as we learned, the part of the brain that can just say no, which implies logic, rational choice, is offline in using and in trauma. So thanks, Nancy Reagan. It was Nancy Reagan, right? Thanks. But what's happened from that era has been this domino effect that we're still battling. And I say we because it's therapists, family members, substance users alike, because there's this ingrained notion of, right, like Dr. Bradley was talking about, oh, you're bad. Just say no. But you have no willpower. You have just say no. It's that easy, right? Like just walk away. And so the thought of me being this speaker and psychologist who is, by day helping people heal and going home and dealing with a chaotic, toxic family situation. We're having, meetings, phone calls, you name it. I went through it, right? Like there was phone calls and there was this and there was rehabs, and then he would quit and then he would go back. And it was several years, and I didn't talk about it because it was shameful for me. And he didn't talk about it because it was shameful for him. So here we have this shame cycle that was fueling itself. And it's all because of, and I kind of joke about the Nancy Reagan thing, but it's not her fault, but it is. It's from that culture. It's from that stigma of the idea that addiction is that simple, right? And that's why I love that Dr. Bradley talks so much about what's going on in your brain, what's going on there's a lot of it that's beyond control. Now that's why these programs are amazing, that can teach you and how to play the tape and do all these different things and all these strategies, but it goes so far beyond that. And I think that's my goal. And I write about that in the book. I write about that. And I write about what it's like to be in the shame, what I feel like my brother, maybe what I speculate that he felt like in his secrecy. I talk about the pain that we went through and the trauma, that here I am, a trauma psychologist on the floor. And I was pregnant when he died the first time. So you were right about the whole forgetting about the pain, because round 2 is coming right up and I'm starting to remember. But I think what's really important for me, and I'm going to share an excerpt from this, is talking about my brother. The least interesting thing about him was his addiction. He was so much more than that. And it upsets me and it angers me and it infuriates me that for a long time I judged him. I remember several years ago, when before I was pregnant and any of this happened, I was up for promotion at work at the hospital I was at, and my boss had said, hey, there's this position, it's a promotion, and it would be like program manager of the addiction program of our hospital. And right now I work in the PTSD program. And I turned it down on the spot. Turned it down. Part of that was a smart decision, because I didn't think that I could run that program without bringing in my bias and all the stuff that I was dealing with at home. So it was too much. So I don't blame myself. But I remember thinking, I don't work with that population. Can't do it. My brother was here, alive, actively struggling, and being a clinical psychologist, I still couldn't separate myself from what people thought, including me, what I thought, right? Heroin? Oh, isn't that the guy in the corner? These stigmas are so built up. And I think what's missing, and why I've chosen to speak out, is because everybody at some point can struggle from an addiction, right? Because an addiction doesn't necessarily mean drugs and alcohol. You guys all know that, right? Like, it's something that you use to cope, something that you use to temporarily feel better, that becomes so repetitive, and then obviously it causes all these problems. But this concept, it was dirty, right? The opposite of, if you're not clean, you're dirty. And so I talk about that. I talk about that from the family perspective of the judgment that I had for my brother. I talk about, trying to navigate the system of different rehab facilities and different programs and what's the right thing to do. And when I really come down to it at the end of it, and the final chapters talk about, it's just about compassion, right? Like, my brother was okay. So what? He used heroin. What's heroin? It's a painkiller. Why? He wanted to kill his pain. Who doesn't want to kill their pain? Right? Like, oh, I understand that. And that's the message that I want to spread. And that's the message that I want to tell, that behind this whole, oh, you're so bad, oh, you're so wrong, oh, you're so dirty, oh, you're so whatever, darkness and light, shame, is these beautiful, wonderful, whole, because, we need to be whole, human beings who are just simply trying to not feel the pain that they might feel inside. Right? And I love that you talked about the IQs, right? Like, there's been a lot of studies that people who struggle with addiction actually are so intelligent, of course, incredibly creative, more creative than most of us. That's why there's a lot of artists that struggle. A high levels of sensitivity, being empaths, really feeling emotions deeply, more deeply than most of us. That was my brother. These are things to be cherished and celebrated. And maybe, we can, in therapy or in different ways, learn to use those tools. But when someone thinks the addict, heroin addict, or we died of a fentanyl overdose, all this stuff, it's so poo-pooed, and I'm so ready. And I hope that y'all are too. And that's part of this recovery that the world needs to recover. We need to recover from these slogans of just say no, because that's not what it's about. It's so beyond that. So I love that all of you are here learning and listening and understanding what's really going on, because that's compassion, right? When you can understand, oh, that's why my loved one did this, right? Or that's why I'm doing this. Because that self-shame and that stigma, that killed my brother. There was many opportunities that he had, and the denial that you spoke about, he couldn't admit to himself, right? And by the time we got to the point where there really was, I saw the problem, and I finally let my own denial lift. It felt like it was almost in the tail end of too late. And so, I wrote this book, and it's about addiction. It's about Cody. That was his name, my brother. It's about grief, because when I lost him, I dropped to my knees, and then here and now I am in trauma, right? Trying to figure that out. It's about the stages of grief. It's about all the regrets, the coulda, shoulda, wouldas. It's about all of that. It's just about human. It's about a human being, no longer being this professional therapist, but I feel like sharing my story and reaching as many people as I can. That's really the mission that I know Cody wanted, and that's the mission that now has become our mission. And the book just came out a few weeks ago, and I've gotten some really wonderful feedback from family and friends and strangers. And some of the emails, just one I got today, was someone, never heard this person in my life, don't know who they are, don't know how they found it. They said, "You've changed my opinion on addiction." And that alone, that one email, that's it, right? Because if I could have had a different opinion of addiction, if my brother could have a different opinion, if we could have had more open conversations, if it was more okay, right? And I know that I'm not talking about everyone, right? But this culture that we live in, mental health is so difficult to access. There's so much shame. There's so much, all of this, right? And we really need to break the silence. And that's what I did. And that's what I'm hoping to do. So I don't really it's interesting, because whenever I teach or whenever I speak, I have PowerPoints and things, and I teach about PTSD and the brain, and that's when I'm in my confidence stage and I know what I'm talking about, and I'm like, yeah, I'm smart. I'm teaching them something. I'm not here to necessarily teach anyone anything. I'm here with an open heart and my own vulnerability to share this story, because I hope that encourages you to share yours and to talk about it more. Whether you're a loved one or whether you're suffering and struggling through addiction, that's what we need to change the conversation. So if nothing else comes from anything that I've said or written about or talked about, if we can change the conversation and shift, and I can get more emails like that, you've changed my mind about what addiction is. I have a really, really good friend who, she's in her medical residency right now. and she knew my brother. And when he died, she said, every time I encounter somebody in the ER who's, detoxing or coming off substances or whatever, she said, I think about him, and that's his legacy. And I treat people just a little bit better because of that, because she knew the humanity of what's behind it. So when someone's in that state of being aggressive and manipulative and lying and all these things that are not frontal lobe, right? It's easy to forget. And that's not to say that we have to be all pushovers and not have boundaries. And I think that all that's important, and that's not what my talk's about today. But I think just compassion, that's my message. Compassion and conversation. Can we have a compassionate conversation and change the story and remember the human beings that we love that are struggling? And it's like, okay, so someone's using heroin to kill their pain. Well, someone over here is on Netflix 20 hours a day, and someone over here, is addicted to scrolling on their phone, and someone over here is, going to the gym 18 hours. I'm exaggerating because that would be a really long time. 6 hours a day, right? So we see, okay, and I talk about that too. So maybe my brother's addiction to opiates, it kills him more quickly than someone else's addiction to shopping or social media. But it's all the same circuitry. It's all the same. And no one's immune to it. And I think that too often we otherize. Oh, you're an addict. Nope, nothing like me. Nope. And we have to almost, because it scares us, those who think we don't have addictions. It scares us to see how similar we are to the people that we judge. So we otherize. And we say, oh, nope, you're over there. I'm over here. And it's not, we all have, if you cut us open, we all have the same frontal lobe, this and that, whatever, right? There's some differences in certain things, fine. But we're all the same. We all have beating hearts, lungs to breathe, all that good stuff. And so I just really relish the opportunity to talk about him, to talk about what my mission is, in mental health and my goal. And I just hope that I can encourage you to share your story with, if you're a family member, maybe you feel ashamed because maybe you feel like there's a failing on your part, or, oh, my child or my brother, I should have saved them, all this kind of stuff, right? Just talk about it, whatever it is. And so my book is not a self-help book. It's not like a prescription of how to get better. It's literally just my journey, and it's pretty raw. I swear in it. My husband said the other day, he's like, you dropped the F-bomb in that book a lot. I said, so? He's like, but you're a professional. I'm like, that's not what the point of the book is, right? I think I only drop it a few times, but either way, it's necessary. We need to express ourselves. So I just want to encourage you to share your story, right? Because if more of us do that, then it becomes the norm. And we can kind of debunk all of these ideas about just saying no and, oh, this is dirty and all that good stuff. So I hope that makes sense. And I appreciate you listening to me, because I believe that grief should be witnessed, right? Because even grief is stigmatized, right? Like, oh my gosh, grief should be witnessed. We need to witness it. Our hearts should be witnessed. But I really appreciate that you can witness my grief, and that we can witness each other in this human experience. So I just wanted to maybe read like an excerpt from this real quick. Couldn't pick which one, but I think this is the one, I swear in it, so it's a good one. So it's called 100 Goodbyes. So let me just tell you about the project for a second. So part of trauma, what I know about trauma and what I know about grief and what I know about our inner worlds as a therapist is we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it, we need to write about it, we need to think about it, and that's how you get through. Because when you're stuck in fight, freeze, or you're stuck in these states and you don't talk about it, what happens? You stay stuck, right? So that just perpetuates the cycle. So I knew that when I self-diagnosed with PTSD because of the trauma of losing my brother, I knew eventually that I needed to talk about it and I needed to heal about it and write about it. So I started a project where I would just write my brother letters. Just write him letters. Some of the letters I wrote to him were apologizing for the things I wished I'd done or said. Some of them were telling him about a memory, because I heard a song on the radio and I wanted to text him about it. Some of them were, that I was angry at him. Some of them were, right? It was all sorts of things. And what's interesting is we have these stages of grief. And they're nonlinear, although they've been described to people as linear. So we have, I wrote about it. We have denial, right? The first one. What's the first one? The shock of it, right? And then we have anger. Then we have bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So I actually read a chapter on each of those and kind of my experience through those. But as you'll notice, if you read it, if you don't, that's all good. But as the reader reads it, my different letters to him that are in here as part of the book as well kind of show me bouncing like rawly through these different stages. Because one letter will be like, oh, I miss you so much, I wish you were here. And then the next one I was like, fuck you, why did you do this, right? And so I just wanted to convey that. And that it was never meant to be a book. It was never meant to be anything until then it became one. It was really for me. And so I'm gonna read you so they're called 100 Goodbyes because there's 100 letters to him. And then there's 5 chapters within. So I'm gonna read you one, maybe 2, they're short. So hopefully it's an easy, digestible read. All right. I knew I should have marked them. So I'm going to read number 28. Isn't it wild to think that opiates come from a flower? Originally, anyways. A beautiful orange poppy, the root cause. Then, of course, we synthesize it. Fuck you, Big Pharma. And we distribute opiates to ease and kill pain. Painkillers. More like people killers. So this once upon a time poppy is now accessible to us all. Overly accessible. Binding to our opiate receptors and tricking the reward center of the brain into thinking we need more, more, more. Our logic knows we don't need the opiates, but the reward center tells us otherwise. It tricks us through out of this world, stronger than anything imaginable cravings. It causes the brain to believe that opiates are now essential to survival. Opiates became bigger than you, an unstoppable force. So who wants to argue with me about choice, or dare tell me that you should just say no? Fuck you and your choice. Fuck you and your misunderstanding. Fuck you and all your judgments. Fuck you. That's a strong one. That's a strong one. Okay, I'll read one more. That's a little bit, less strong. That was for my husband. He's watching. Okay. This is 58. My son is teething, 4 teeth at once, and he's been up screeching in pain on and off for over an hour past his bedtime. It's been an extra long day, and I've barely stuffed a previously frozen burrito into my mouth. I drop everything to rock him and hold him. I let him lay on my chest until he falls asleep. I have so much to do, but letting his little hand wrap around me as he listens to my heartbeat, that's the only place I know I need to be. My body is his home. I'm his safe place. I think about those moments in life when all you need is your mom. It's hard for me to remember what it felt like to be scooped up in our mama's arms, knowing everything was all right. It feels like so long ago. That's what was missing for you. You never felt safe, the way Austin does on my chest. I get it. I struggle with feeling safe too. It's that panicky feeling, a sense of being unsettled when you're completely fine. You didn't know how to find that feeling, not since she died. I know it well. I was right there too. You felt lost and small, looking for anything to give you the sense of being whole, even if it was substance-induced, even if it was a substance-induced lie. I've heard patients describe heroin as a warm blanket, a euphoria unlike any other. I don't know from experience, but that sure does sound like something nice to go home to, especially if you were only 11 when your safe place was taken from your little hands. My heart breaks over these thoughts. I understand our mother now through empathic eyes. I think about what it was like for her, holding her perfect little boy, letting him lay on her chest all night as he cried from sore gums, even though she was stripped of energy. You, the perfect little boy. I think about her own heartache, knowing she had to leave us, knowing she was taking our first home. These thoughts make me cry. So I hold Austin tightly and whisper to him that I love him, hoping that my words echo across time and space, praying that he always feels safe. praying that he never feels lost, wishing some way, somehow, you could have heard our mother's echoes, if only that could have kept you alive. So they're different, obviously. There's 100 of them, and then there's 5 chapters. And so that's it. That's me. That's my story. That's Cody. He was so much more. And I just really, my new shift in my career has been, my self-proclaimed shift, has been that I want to speak about this. I want to talk about this. And I hope that I inspire you to talk about it too, because I truly believe that through a compassionate conversation is how we can change. So, thank you. So,
thank you so much for sharing your vulnerability, and I just appreciate you very much. Thank you, Dr. Bradley, for sharing the stage with her. I appreciate all of you so much for just taking a moment to yourself and your loved ones, and I just love you all. Thank you. Love you, Danny. Have a good night. Please take some food, and Nicole, sign books, and Dr. Bradley, sign books. I love it.